Okay, so here we're going to begin with our first electronic lecture. So today we're going to discuss Vishnu. But before we get to Vishnu, we have to have a little review of what we discussed last Thursday in regard to the Trinity. Okay, the Trinity, we've seen this slide before. So first we discuss Brahma. So Brahma is generally considered to be the one who is responsible for the creation of the universe. It is from his body that various objects, the binaries, good and evil, light and dark, humans, plants, animals, all evolve. But we also discussed the issue of the kalpa. So there's a very big contrast between Buddhism and Hinduism. In Buddhism, there is much more of a sense of personal responsibility, personal agency. When Buddhists think about history, about the years as they pass, it is about their own lives. And it is, if I live a very good life, if I live by the Eightfold Path, then I will get into heaven. Or if I don't live by those virtues, I'll end up in hell for 33 years before I'm born again. Remember, when the Buddha was born, he said, "This is my last life. I've lived 500 times. I'm done with it." So it's more of a human history, a human evolution. But in Hinduism, the individual is subordinated to the larger sense of cycles of the eras of history. So it's not about the individual's reincarnations and birth and death cycles, it's the birth and death cycles of the world. So as we said, each era is over 4 million years. When the earth is created, the earth goes through like its Iron Age, Bronze Age, Gold Age, and then its decline, and then dissolves until it is going to be reborn again. And that's where Brahma comes in. So Brahma is the one who's responsible for getting it all going again after the dissolution into the black darkness. We already mentioned a little bit about Brahma. He's got 4 faces. He watches over the 4 quarters of the universe. His emblems, a lotus flower, the begging bowl, a little vase where he keeps water. Sometimes it looks like a canteen. And then the manuscript, the holy books, the Vedas. Even the holy books come from Brahma's creation of the universe. So all of this emanates from his body. And we also mentioned that his vehicle is the goose. The goose is responsible for transporting him between the waters and the skies. And also the goose is a symbol of migration. As it's here and then it wanders away, it keeps coming back, just like the planet Earth keeps coming back from era to era. We see an image of Brahma, and we only see obviously 3 heads. We don't see the back of the sculpture. So let's go through these emblems so that you can recognize them. So obviously he has 4 arms on the left side, 4 arms on the right side. So let's look. We have to be very careful when we describe these sculptures. It's either our right and our left, or we say Brahma's right arms and Brahma's left arms. Those things are different. So when you say on the left, who's left? So you have to be specific. So if we say in Brahma's right hands, from top to bottom, the first thing that we see is that long rectangle. That's the book. That's the holy book. Then he has the trident, he has weapons, and in his inner right hand, he holds the rosary, very similar to the Christian Catholic Orthodox rosary beads. In his left hands, again, more weapons, and in his close left hand, we again see that's the water pot. Sometimes you can recognize these things. Obviously, they are modeled on household utensils and elements of warfare, and those things look different from century to century. So it would depend on the time at which these sculptures were created as to the design of these particular tools or weapons. So the next slide, slide number 5, is a relief sculpture showing Brahma. Again, we see 3 faces. All the faces are identical with Brahma, but again, they look to the 4 quarters. And Brahma, remember, sits on a lotus. We know that already. So therefore, again, the symbol of rebirth. So if Brahma is responsible for bringing the earth back to action from absolute darkness, he's also associated with rebirth. Therefore, he's seated on a lotus. Again, his vehicle you see in the bottom left, our left of the image. There you have the goose looking up at him, ready to take him wherever he needs to go. We have our introduction to Vishnu. All of these gods have multiple titles. So we see Lord Creator, the generator of all beings, Lord of sacred wisdom, Lord of the universe, Lord of the waters, primeval being, supreme refuge, world creator, and maintainer of Maya. Well, the question is, isn't that Brahma? Isn't Brahma the creator and generator of all beings? Isn't he the one who has the books of wisdom? So there is a lot of overlap. And it represents the fact that these gods are always competing with each other to get the spotlight. So therefore, all 3 of them, want to be known as the creator. All 3 of them want to be the focus of people's devotions. It is extremely hard to distinguish them in terms of their titles. They all claim to be the greatest of them all. They're always in competition. But the one thing, obviously, that is different between Brahma and Vishnu is that Brahma is very remote. After he creates the universe, he takes a rest. He goes to sleep. He just watches the universe with his 4 heads, 4 faces. Vishnu is much more involved, and that's what we're going to see as we get further into this lecture. Now, the last one we've already seen, Maya. And as we define Maya in class, it is the production of life on earth. So Vishnu is much more involved in directing human lives, in manipulating people, in manipulating events. He has avatars, which we're going to discuss, where he actually lives in semi-human form on Earth among people and talking to people, engaging with them, teaching them good versus evil. So he's much more directly involved. Brahma is so far away that really nobody prays to him. He's too remote. He doesn't listen. He is beyond and above in this abstract realm of his own, creation once every 4 million years. Here, Vishnu is much more approachable and real. So Vishnu is easy to recognize because he is resting on a snake. As we said, the coils of the snake, Ananda, are his mattress. And as we said with Maya, Vishnu is asleep on the cosmic waters. So by many Hindu temples, you actually have like an artificial pool with Vishnu floating in it. And here we have that image, contemporary photograph of a statue of Vishnu lying on the serpent coils. Vishnu, eyes are closed. He is asleep because the Maya and all of us are inside of him. So he's not looking outward, he's looking inward as he tries to choreograph earthly existence. Again, it's a painting. I think it's interesting how different artists conceptualize this very abstract notion of Vishnu floating in the cosmic darkness. There's nothing in that water. There are no islands, there's no plant life. It is absolute dark emptiness because everything is within him. And in this painting, I think it also is cute the way the snakes are represented, clustering together in order to give Vishnu a sense of peace and calm and comfort. What's coming out of his belly button? Okay, we see him on the snake. We see the snake hoods above his head. In this case, he has a nice crown. He has beautiful jewelry, summer clothing, the skirt with a very fancy belt. He has big earrings. He has a lot of jewelry. But look at the area of the belly button. Up coming from the belly button is a lotus flower. And who's sitting on the lotus flower with his four heads? That's Brahma. So Brahma is seen in these images as coming on a lotus, coming out of the belly button of Vishnu. So then we would say, well, then Vishnu gave birth to Brahma, that Brahma is a part of Vishnu's Maya. You know, it's like an umbilical cord. There you have the parent, and the child is coming out the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is the stem of the lotus, and there is the baby. So again, there's a lot of ambiguity and conflict between who is the master god and who is the secondary god. So always look for little Brahma coming out of that belly button. It's a very bizarre issue. There again, you recognize him because he always looks asleep. The eyes are always closed. I'm not sure if he looks like he is asleep. Maybe he's just like resting because some of these body gestures are a little more like he's thinking. But you always can recognize the snake mattress and quite often the snake hoods that serve as his protection as he is sleeping. Okay? But can you see here that wrapping around his body, not out of his belly button here, but wrapping out of his body, it looks like a rope. It comes down by his left armpit, down his left thigh, across his lap, and then it flows upward, and at the top of that sculpture, in the middle, you have Brahma sitting on the lotus. So you have Brahma on the lotus, you have two angels on the right, angels on the left, you have people watching, and there we have his wife who is at his ankle, holding his leg. The next is a contemporary painting. So we'll get into the issue of painting and painting styles. It's a regional issue. So some of them look real quirky and folksy and contemporary, while others look a little more European in style. We'll get to that later. The way we're structuring these lectures is that we're focusing on the symbolism. Who are these gods? What are their narratives? How are they represented? So here again, you see the snake mattress. You see Vishnu. He's got 4 arms. It could be 4 arms. It can be 6 arms. It can be 8 arms. There's no rule. Or 2 arms. And then there's 3 snake hoods protecting him. That thing with 4 heads at the top, that's Brahma, seated on a lotus. And here, actually, the stem of the lotus, the green lotus, is going down to Vishnu's belly button. And again, by his feet, there's his wife. Okay? So now you can, recognize these various elements. They're very predictable. And even if many of these Hindu works of art have horror vacui, they're overly crowded with visual imagery, you know what to look for in order to identify the various gods. There he is. In this case, eyes open. In these paintings, eyes are open. There's Brahma in the middle. We can see 3 faces. and sitting on the lotus coming out of the belly button of Vishnu, and the wife at his feet. Of course, it's sexist. The wife is at his feet, but that's the way things are. Okay, and then here the snake mattress, the snake skin is decorated with all of these beautiful little semicircles and patterns. Okay, bottom right is someone just praying to him, and we'll get to some of those narratives in a little while. Let's discuss some other characteristics, tools that Vishnu uses. So he also has certain things in his hands, as we saw with Brahman. Now, by looking at those things, it's going to be hard to distinguish who's who, because more or less they're holding the same types of objects. So Vishnu holds a conch shell, a discus, a mace, and a lotus. His vehicle, remember we said the vehicle for Brahma was a goose. This one is a little different. It's called Garuda. Goose, generally for Brahma, it looks like a goose. It is a bird that we're all familiar with. Vishnu's vehicle, Vahana is the word for vehicle. Vishnu's vehicle is more mythical, and many people think of it as a griffin. It is like part bird, part eagle, part human. It's a composite creature. So in some examples we're going to see it's like a human with a bird face, or a bird head with a human body, or a human with bird wings. But like Brahma's goose, this one does fly. So again, he can be transported through the air when it is needed. So there you see in this slide, he can be represented as a hybrid with human arms, vulture legs, bird-like, beak-like nose. But it's also interesting that as this composite bird-like, eagle-like creature, he kills snakes. So that sometimes plays a part in the narrative. It seems contradictory because Vishnu is sleeping most of the time on a snake, but his vehicle hunts snakes. Okay, so let's get to that issue. Okay, so Vishnu is asleep all the time on the mattress. So we're talking about Vishnu taking a form inside of his Maya. You don't take Garuda to go flying in cosmic space. There's nowhere to go. You take Garuda when you want to fly around Earth, when you want to fly around the interior of Vishnu's Maya. And there we have the name of his wife. His wife's name is Lakshmi. Okay, so before we go any further, I have a couple slides. The next slide, slide 14, is of a conch shell. Just I want to make sure everyone can visualize what we're talking about. So when we have Vishnu holding things in his hands, this is what a shell looks like. Why would he need this? How does that help you? For those of you who have been to tropical places, this is mostly Africa and the Caribbean. A conch shell, you blow it and it makes like a trumpeting sound. So you carry it because you have to make like a big trumpeting sound. I guess everyone needs to every now and then. The weapons. That is what they consider to be a discus. We're used to a discus in Olympic track and field events. That dish-like object that you spin across the sky. Whether it was in ancient Greece, many societies, there were always weapons like that you would spin and toss in order to knock out your opponent. So again, here's a weapon, in order to throw and knock out your opponent. A mace. It was very typical in Europe. Obviously, it was typical in Asia as well. And it's obviously metal. It's very heavy. But the top of it, has very sharp, razor precision edges. So when you smack someone on the head with it, or smack them on the chest, or smack them on the back with it, not only does that thrust, topple them over, but it also can cut their body. So that is a very, very potent weapon. Vishnu, awake, alive, and active. Again, he's sitting on the snake coils. We have the snake hoods around his head. We have people on the left, people on the right, angels on the top left, angels on the top. You can recognize an angel because their legs are tilted up at odd angles. That is that they're floating. Okay, it's not convincing, but that's what it is. So there he has 2 arms on the left and 2 arms on the right. It's a little hard to see, but you can tell that he's holding things in the 2 upright arms. Okay, now in this conversation, I'm not going to talk about anatomy, proportion, mass, ethnicity, because it's all the same. It's all indigenous. The heads are all round. The eyes are on the surface of the skin. There are no eye sockets. The nose is fleshy and broad. The lips are very fleshy as well. Not that big. Generally the same width as the nostrils. There are no bones and muscles in the body. Even though, as we'll see, with rasa and tapas, these figures are very active. They can move quite a bit. But there is prana. It is soft flesh. It is puffy flesh with no sharp interior structure. So when these bodies twist and turn, or the arms go up, or the arms go down, or the legs start to move, they're really like bending in all odd angles or bending in unusual places. But there's this sense of flexibility of the bending that gives it a sense of ease and comfort. But again, there's no biological anatomy, bone and muscle in any Hindu sculpture, in any Hindu work of art. The body proportion, it's different based on the area of India. But in this case that we see, the head is big, the neck is too small, the shoulders are too narrow, the elbows are in different places of both arms. Even the distance from knee to ankle is different in the right leg as in the left leg. And mass, because these figures are rounded and puffy, you are going to get hills and valleys. So not only do the eyes pop out, the nose comes out, the lips project from the surface, but there's a roundness to the arms. There's a roundness to the hands and the fingers. There's roundness to the legs. So they do exist in a 3-dimensional space. They're not flat figures as we saw in other countries. In terms of clothing, costume, it's mostly going to be what we're familiar with, the summer clothing, the transparent skirt, second skin, with jewelry. So quite often the crown, the big earrings, the necklace, arm bracelets, high up on the arm, low up on the arm, sometimes anklets, but nothing new. Here again, position of royal ease, just like the last one. So royal ease in asymmetry to the placement of the legs. It actually looks like Guan Yin from China with a 1 leg up, 1 leg down. But look at his upper right arm, which is on our left. That's the discus. So it's a circular disc. That's the discus. And in his upper left arm, that's the shell. So in this representation, he has the shell and the discus. The other 2 hands look empty. So we got an angel on the left. Look at the position of the legs, angled up. Well, two angels on the left and two angels on the right. Again, in his upper right hand, you have the discus. And in his upper left hand, it's an odd angle, but that is the shell. He's got a crown. He's got a necklace. He's got all of these Hindu gods have these sashes, is that what you want to call it? These braids and jewelry that come down one shoulder across the body, fancy belts. This is all simply jewelry and luxury and wealth. So whereas Buddhists are very conscious of whether Buddha should have jewelry, here in Hinduism, the gods are very much decked out in opulent attire, heavy jewelry, layered upon layer, all over their body. Okay? And then we have a woman on the left and a demon on the bottom right. So everyone adores Vishnu, but it's something funny. Are they adoring him because they love him or because they fear him? And that's a duality that exists in almost all Hinduism. There we have Vishnu. He's got his weapons. There you see in his right arm the very long cylinder. That is the mace. So in this case, he's holding the mace. So he can have various combinations of those weapons. And who's under him? That's Garuda. So in this case, Garuda is represented in a human form. But first recognize Vishnu, and then his vehicle is Garuda, no matter whether it's in a bird form, human form, or a combination of those. And the other people are just, praying to him and recognizing his divinity. Another example of Vishnu on Garuda. Here it's human form, but you can recognize the bird wings. So that makes it easier here that this is Vishnu. This is a more modern version of Garuda. So if you have a temple that is dedicated to Vishnu, you'll have a statue of his Vahana outside. It's like when you go in for a meeting or you go into school, you leave your car in the parking lot. So therefore, Garuda is waiting outside of Vishnu's temple for him to be ready to fly back home. So that is true of Shiva, and that is true of Vishnu. Brahma doesn't have any temples. No one prays to Brahma, so we don't have to deal with it. But this is his car waiting outside the building. This is where he parked it, and it's waiting for him to return. So there we have Garuda again. So most of the time we see it as a human with bird wings. And it's just there. We saw that hand gesture. That hand gesture in India is puja, or like, they even do it for greetings now, like namaste. So those hands together represent honoring somebody, praying to somebody. So there he is on one knee. So obviously he is the obedient servant of Vishnu. There we have Vishnu. Here, Garuda is a bird. And remember we said the bird that likes to eat snakes? He's holding a snake in one of his hands, it looks like. And there we have Vishnu's wife. Now, Vishnu's wife is called Lakshmi. So today we're doing Vishnu, then we're going to look at Shiva, and then we're going to discuss goddesses. So every god has a wife. Because, as we mentioned, in a society that is so focused on fertility, for Vishnu to be able to create, or for Shiva to be able to create, he needs the feminine principle. And we're going to discuss all of that at another date. So that is his wife. So it's a beautiful, loving couple. And look at what's in his hands. Here you can see on our right, there's the shell. Also on our right, there's the mace, the long metal rod with that very sharp end. And in his right hands, we have the lotus flower and we have the rosary beads. But obviously the bird is fascinating. The bird's tail, feathers are very, it's a very interesting design. And the colors, it's beautifully done. There he is. There we got Vishnu. His wife is sitting next to him. All right, there's a gender patriarchal thing. He's big, she's small, so there's a sense of symbolic scale here that women are, don't say subordinate, but they are accessories of the gods. We'll get to the whole thing about wives and the feminine principle later. And there's Garuda at the bottom. So again, husband and wife floating through the air on the back of Garuda. Okay. Now, what is most interesting about Vishnu, as I said, is that he goes into his own Maya and plays a role. He has taken on, well, we use the term now with virtual reality, avatars. So the concept of avatars came from Vishnu. It originated from Hinduism. He takes 10 different roles, bodies, identities as he visits Earth. And we're going to look at 7 out of the 10 that are most widely represented in art. We generally put these avatars in groups because they have certain themes. So the first theme we're going to look at is expansion. Now that may sound odd, but let me tell you the first story. Vishnu took the form of a dwarf. He went to the court of a very evil king. And he said to the evil king that he is a holy man and he wants land to stay for the rainy season. We talked in Buddhism about that for monks and holy men, they need a monastery, a place to stay, a place of refuge so they conduct their prayers. So as an ascetic, a holy Hindu dwarf, a short guy, he goes to the king, tells the king, you have a tremendous amount of land. I just want a little bit so that I can practice my faith. I can be an ascetic. But the king said, no, why would I give you any land? So obviously, the dwarf, being Vishnu in disguise, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. He expands. He gets so large that he raises up his leg and takes 3 steps which take over all of the king's territory. The king was reluctant to give him anything. So being a little dwarf, he told the dwarf, okay, if you want, you get as much land as 3 paces, 3 steps. Well, when he expanded, those 3 steps were the whole king's kingdom. So Vishnu took this form of a dwarf in order to teach a lesson. And that's supposed to be the running theme here. When Vishnu comes to planet Earth and lives amongst us, it is to punish the wicked and to show humanity the proper path. And actually, the proper path in Hinduism is the Eightfold Path. There is no difference. That is the core of the Indian belief system. But in these highly dramatic events, again, tapas and rasa, this is a representation with the one leg up, the arms flying in the air. This is a representation of aggression, heated energy, dynamism, tremendous activity, in order to create a sense of peace, tranquility, understanding, and joy, spiritual joy. Even though, as we look at the slide, it is a very dramatic image. One leg up, he's going to take his 3 steps. The arms are flying in the air. He's got the discus. He's got the conch. He's got the mace. He's got all the weapons there. He's got the holy book there. There's still no bones and muscles in that body. So really, if you're an athlete and you're doing something tremendously aggressive, you should have bones and muscles in your body. Not only that, but the raised leg. Like, where's the knee? That whole proportion, the whole length of that raised leg is absolutely not logical. It's a little 3 bends. It's that fluidity, flexibility that's a part of the Indian indigenous style. But again, this is an action pose. So look at the figure. If one leg is this bizarre, twisted, rubbery leg going upwards, it's Vishnu as a dwarf. So once you learn the stories, you can identify all of these narratives. And you see all the little people at the bottom, because now he towers above everybody. They all recognize immediately, oh my gosh, this is Vishnu. Everyone recognizes this is Vishnu. And obviously, he overwhelms them with his power. He's omnipotent. He's omniscient. So therefore, they pray to him and the lessons that he's teaching. I don't know if you think it looks like ballet. It looks like, someone working at the ballet bar. But that one leg is up at a very peculiar, not biological angle. That is Vishnu as a dwarf. Obviously, an expansion narrative. Let's look at another expansion narrative. Vishnu as a fish. So there was a boy who found this little fish in a pond. He took the fish, put it in a fish bowl, and took it home. But the fish kept growing. So the boy had to keep putting him in larger bowls, larger tubs of water. The fish just kept growing and growing and growing. And then the fish was so large, the boy had to put it in a pond. Too small for the pond, the fish had to go into a lake. Then into the ocean. So what was the story here? The fish kept growing and growing and growing, so large that its size threatened to create tidal waves on the surface of the earth. Earth was going to be destroyed. Humanity was going to be destroyed. So eventually, with the prayers of the individuals, and you see everyone lined up, watching Vishnu as the fish. Through their prayers, Vishnu grew smaller and saved the planet. So here we have him. The fish doesn't really look like a fish, again, because biological anatomy does not exist in Indian art. But here, Vishnu expanded to show that, again, he is omnipotent, omniscient, all-powerful, and that people need to recognize him for what he is. So sometimes it may sound arrogant. It may sound like it's ego. He wants people to understand him. He wants people to pray to him. He's very needy. So therefore, he may undergo an avatar just to get people's praise. So I guess that makes him a bad person. Okay, we have 2 expansion. The expansion is the dwarf, the expansion is the fish. Here's another one. Here we have Vishnu as the boar, B-O-A-R, like a wild pig, a boar. There once was an evil demon in the waters. And the evil demon kept raising the waters, raising the waters. The earth was in danger of being flooded. Vishnu had to save the earth. He took the form of a boar. In this image, you see the head of the wild pig, but the body is human. He has to dive into the water, find that evil demon lurking at the bottom of the sea, and rescue planet Earth. The Earth is completely submerged by water. He has to go down and rescue her, raise Earth back up to the surface of the oceans. You see the little woman who was hanging onto his tusk? That little woman, that is Mother Earth, that he is raising up to the surface with his tremendous strength in order to put the universe back in balance. So there are creatures on Earth that are trying to undermine his authority, who are trying to continually destroy Earth. So the question would be, but isn't this all in his Maya? If this is all in his Maya, why does he think up enemies, enemy combatants? Why is he thinking up demons that are going to destroy his creation? So maybe he only thinks of Earth as his playground. Let's see what people do if this happens. Let's see what happens in this scenario where actually people get killed, people get drowned, Earth is destroyed. So again, it's a concept of God that is so almighty that people are really powerless. So as he raises up little Earth with his tusk, there you see the rows and rows and rows of people who thank him for saving Earth and saving humanity. Now, what I find interesting about this example, when Vishnu takes one of these very aggressive avatars, that body is not bad. That body actually has bones and muscles. He's got pectorals. He's got abdominal muscles. He's got thighs. Look at those knees. And with his left hand is on his knee as he's like pushing upward from the bottom of the sea in order to raise up, to lengthen out his body so Earth can be on the top of the waters. So you actually have good muscles there. So even in terms of body proportion, okay, I don't know what the body proportion would be for a head of a wild pig to a human body, but that's pretty good. Those arms make sense. Those legs make sense. The muscular torso actually looks, like we saw Gandhara, actually looks Greek. So there are some interesting peculiarities. Again, little Earth, Mother Earth is being raised up by his tusk, but that body is much more Indian. Much more Indian. It's that smooth softness, but the artist is trying to have a little mass in those pectorals, trying to give us a little sense of the fleshiness of that stomach as it overlaps the belt. So in some of these avatars that really require a lot of muscle, the artist does go out of the ordinary in order to represent that. We got a painted example. So again, with his tusk, we don't see Mother Earth, we see the surface of land, where there's the demon is vanquished, you actually see the demon's arm is being cut off and it's falling into pieces, and Earth is being raised up to the top of that water line. So that's what the narrative is about. He's saving Earth. Is another example, the demon is underfoot, and the surface of the Earth is being raised up higher and higher and higher. In that case, you actually see he's holding a lotus flower, a shell, the mace, and the discus. It's very clear the four emblems. Number 33 is another bizarre representation of Vishnu as the boar. Here, his whole body is a wild pig. It's not a hybrid of animal and human. But there you see on the side, like hanging down from his jaw, is Mother Earth. There she is, hanging on to his tusk as he saves her. But look at the surface of his body. It's rows and rows of people who are thanking him for saving planet Earth. Is another example of the same narrative. So you see that same head. That is the head of the wild pig, Vishnu as a boar. There he's hand holding Mother Earth like holding a little child. But very much Indian indigenous. Some people even have 3 bends in their body. This is our next avatar. It is Vishnu as a half human, half lion. That's the lion face on a human body. So this story goes that there was a king who had a son, obviously the prince, who was a close follower of Vishnu. But his father did not want his son to follow Vishnu. He wanted his son to pray to Shiva. The son said no. So there was a prophecy that the king would be killed neither at day, neither at night, neither inside nor outside. Well, when the king heard that prophecy, it's like, well, then I'm never going to get killed. Well, that makes no sense. So Vishnu, there he is, took this form of part lion, part human, and we don't have a larger view of where this is located. He hid in the porch, the outside, porch of the palace. Neither day nor night. Well, what about at dawn or dusk? Neither inside the house nor outside the house. Well, wouldn't that be the porch? The front terrace? It's neither inside, it's not open air. So Vishnu as lion stood outside on the porch, and when the king came out, he killed him. So that anyone who denies Vishnu as the Supreme Lord will be destroyed. There he is as the lion head on a human body. When that king comes out and that king steps out onto the porch, he just pounces on that king and starts tearing at his stomach and pulls out his intestines. So that's a lot of fun. So you see, behind the king, those 2 diagonal lines, those are the pillars of the porch. So he was hiding behind a pillar on the porch and pounced out like a lion and devoured the king. So there we have the prince and the prince's wife who thank Vishnu for killing the enemy, even though the enemy was the father. Some of these get very gruesome. So there we have more of a bloody, evil head for Vishnu as the lion, with the tongue out, like bloodthirsty. He's holding the body of the king and like with his hands, like clawing at the torso in order to destroy him. I don't think all of that nice greenery and the vines and the leaves balance out the gruesomeness of the image. That is what the lion face looks like. It's more of a cartoon lion face. So there's the lion head on the human body. So you will have images of Vishnu as the lion in various porches of temples. Again, that no one who challenges Vishnu should be able to get into any of his temples. So the ones we have seen so far, the avatars we've seen so far, have been supernatural. In this life, the next one we're going to discuss, he took a real human form. And if you're familiar with the epic poems of India, the most famous one is the Ramayana. which is the story of Rama. So Rama is one of the avatars of Vishnu. It's one of these stories, it goes on and on, it's recited, it's one of these oral traditions that goes on for days and days and days. But to sum it up, he was the youngest of all the princes. So being a young, the youngest, the eldest, he would not inherit anything from the king, his father. So not an heir to wealth or power. He became like a virtuous one. So he went out, and the Ramayana is about him saving his girlfriend. His girlfriend was called Sita, 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 and that's a very common Indian name. So his girlfriend was Sita, and Sita was kidnapped by the Monkey King. And the Ramayana is about all these battles to try and all of these schemes in order to try to get his girlfriend back. Now, that's not a very unusual story. We have that story quite often in literature from many different countries. But what is different here is that it is a representation of goodness triumphing over evil. And Rama is the representation of virtue, of the good warrior, the cowboy with the white hat, the guy who is willing to do anything in order to destroy evil so that at the end, order is restored in the universe. He gets his girlfriend, they get married, they live happily ever after. So again, while the other ones, the expansion avatars, or Vishnu as the boar or Vishnu as the lion, the purpose is to strike fear in those who do not believe and to assert his ego as the Lord of the universe. The Ramayana is more of a human narrative that provides role models for daily life. Rama and one of his brothers as they battle with the evil monkeys. Okay? So I'm not going to get into all the details of the Ramayana. It's a very expansive story. There is Rama and his brother there's a monkey king with many, many arms and weapons. Sometimes Rama loses a battle. It's not all, easy. The monkey's flying through the air. So this is a representation of the monkey kingdom. Ironically, the monkey kingdom is considered to be Sri Lanka or somewhere around Sri Lanka. So he has to go quite a distance in order to retrieve his girlfriend. Now, the most famous of all the avatars of Vishnu, and that is Vishnu is Krishna. You probably have all heard of Krishna. He is most prominent in Hindu art. That is an avatar. So there is a story that, again, there's an evil king. Obviously, in Hinduism and Buddhism, most kings are evil. Because power corrupts. There was an evil king, and he received the prophecy that one of his sons will grow up to kill him. Well, isn't that Saturn and Zeus? It's the same narrative as that. And like Saturn with Zeus, Saturn got that prophecy. What happened when Zeus was born? The mother exchanged the child for something else. We're not going to go into the Greek story, but the mother here, the queen, made an agreement with a village woman that as soon as the baby would be born, the child would be sent to the village and secretly live as her child. Not just Krishna, but even Krishna was child number 8. He knew child number 8 was going to be the one to kill me. So number 7, they already sent to the village woman. Here is number 8 is born. They send number 8 to the village woman, and they got like a corpse, like a child who had died in childbirth. And they said to the father, oh my gosh, child number 8 died. Okay, so I'm going to read something. When Krishna was born, at that moment, in the very middle of the night, when the moon was shining, the ocean shook, the mountains trembled, fires blazed when Krishna was born. Drums which had not been struck resounded to the heaven of the gods, and the Lord of the heavens sent down a rain of flowers from the sky. So Krishna, in what we see in slide 43, is he being raised by the village woman, Yashoda. And she treated him, she was a wonderful mother, she treated him as if her own child. Now, again, the demons are aware of what's going on. The king found out what was going on. So the king works with the demons in order to destroy this child, because the child eventually is going to kill him. So the plan was all exposed. So the king sent an evil demoness to destroy them. She comes to the house, knocks at the door. She's like an old woman. Knocks on the door and says, oh, I heard you have a beautiful new child. Oh, I'd like to see your baby. So they invite her in, and obviously the most precious thing that someone could give a child is their breast milk. So she asked if Krishna could take her breast. So the mother says yes. That's considered to be a nice offer. But Krishna knew this was a demon. Krishna knew that she was there to destroy him. She put a little poison on a nipple, so then when he would suck it, he would be instantly killed. But Krishna is not an ordinary human. So he took that breast. He sucked on that nipple and sucked so hard that he sucked all the life, not just out of that breast, but out of her whole body. She died, but because she died suckling Krishna, she was able to go to heaven. So that ended up nice for the evil goddess. There's another story that Krishna's brother ran to the mother. Krishna's eating dirt. He was out in the garden eating dirt. Well, in the south of the United States, a lot of children eat dirt. But he's eating dirt. The mother calls Krishna in. Why are you eating dirt? Open up your mouth. I want to see if you've been eating dirt. He said, no, I haven't. No, I haven't. She opens up his mouth. What does she see? She sees the cosmic waters. She sees the darkness of the universe. She gets a glimpse of his Maya. That's what's inside of Krishna. But she doesn't know how to react. And Krishna can't let her have that knowledge, so he gives her amnesia. But Krishna's not an ordinary child, never was and never would be. So we'll see how his life continues. There he is, and everyone loves him. He's a fun child. He's the fun one. He's a prankster. The nickname of Krishna, he's called the Blue One. So his skin is almost always blue in art. And that's, again, a way to distinguish him from mere mortals. So here we have 3 women, we got 5 men, and they're all, playing with little baby Krishna. There is Krishna with the women. So it's like it takes a village to raise a child. That's exactly what's happening here. Everybody loves him. He's taking a bath. There he is in the top line. And both lines. In the top line with all the kids from the village, or in the bottom line, there he's running and playing. he grows up like a normal child, playing games, having friends, wandering around the village, taking care of animals and so forth. Krishna becomes very popular in Indian legend because he represents something special. It is called Lila. It's Lila. It is playfulness. It is joy. It is happiness. The daily life of people in India is extremely difficult. You're barely eking out an existence. The land is not always very fertile. The dry spells. In an agrarian society, there are years of prosperity, there are years of drought and austerity. In a world where there is so much stress and anxiety, where people are working 7 days a week, Krishna represents fun, playfulness. He is a prankster. He plays games on people. He makes jokes. He plays. But some of it is not what we consider to be nice. It's a very, it's a sense of humor that is not very respectful all the time. Like to play a joke on a neighbor who'll go in their house and urinate. So here he's dancing, acting silly, one leg up, one leg down. Obviously, it's a very Indian body with prana and everything else. There's a playfulness. Quite often you see him with a flute. Now, when he plays his flute, it's like Orpheus from ancient Greece. It enchants people, it enchants animals, the plants start singing and dancing, birds are chirping. It is a sense of, he brings joy, he brings pleasure, he brings a sense of beauty to the world, into the difficult village environment in which he lives. So he brings that sense of magic. So here the animals come to listen. The women are entranced by his music and bring him anything he desires. He is a lord, he is a god, and he knows how to manipulate people. You see him in the middle circle playing his flute and women adoring him. And then the circle, and then the other circle are women dancing in circles around him. Everyone is enchanted by him. Everyone wants to be with him, and everyone wants to be him because he is the fun person to be around. In a painting, there he's playing his flute, and the women are magically entranced by it. There he's standing with men left and right, honoring him. The same thing with women dancing around him. So when he lives in this village, the village is always green. There are always flowers in the trees. Every vine is filled with flowers. There's a sense of fertility and opulence. There are peacocks walking all around the gardens. The mountains are beautiful. He brings beauty to a world of drought and poverty and sadness. That's why everyone loves him. He's playing his flute. The women are like throwing flower petals on him as a man pays his respect. Krishna, like everybody else, can have multiple arms. There are times, like with that old woman that came to the house, where he has to fight. The king knows that his 8th son is out there. He has to destroy the 8th son. So once in a while, some sort of demon or some enemy combatant is going to come to that village secretly in order to destroy him. In this case, that's his father. So therefore, he's got the weapons ready, and he is going to kill his father. There's a poisonous serpent. And the snake is in their, not a lake, it's like a pond. The village has a pond where they get all of their water. Well, all of a sudden there's an evil snake in there, and the snake is spewing poison into the lake, and people can't get the water to drink and to cook. The water is devastated. So he goes into the water, he does his little dance, and in his dance, he, like an egg beater, he churns that water, and that snake starts spinning, and the snake is destroyed. In the whipping of the waters, the snake comes out, he's able to kill it. So when you see someone like in this dancing, the legs are spinning with that snake, it's Krishna destroying the snake that was poisoning the water. Another example of it, again, his legs up and down, he's dancing, and there you see the coils of the serpent in the waters. Now there he's with the guys. He hangs out with the guys. It's a very easy life. Nobody expects him to work. He's just like leisure time, fun. He has no responsibility. He has no occupation. He just has a good time. So he plays with the guys. He wrestles with animals. So there he's playing with a mule. I think it's a mule or a horse. He's playing with the animal, tugging on its leg. There's another animal, can you see, hanging from a tree? So a lot of it is nasty jokes and nasty practical games, but that's what he does. The next one, there again, he's playing with animals, wrestling with animals. So again, some of these representations demands more muscles, demands more representation of aggression and movement. Legs are up, arms are spinning. Some of them have good muscles, like we saw with Vishnu as the boar. Some of them are still way too soft in order to be believable in terms of these very strong narratives. Just like Vishnu, there is a need for him to save the earth. So there again, like Vishnu as the boar, he is lifting up the earth to save it with everybody else looking on. So Krishna does have those magical powers to step in when humanity is in danger. So actually this painting looks Persian, it's Mughal, but it shows that the concept of Krishna appeals to many different people. Again, he's killing his father. So there's no mercy for the wicked. There's no sense like in Christianity that people can repent and be forgiven. There's no forgiveness. There was a fire that was about to destroy the village. He blows out the fire. So the village is saved. We start another part of Krishna's life. And that is, he does get married. Here we see him with his girlfriend. His girlfriend's name is Radha, which again is a common Indian name. She also lives in the village. You know, they grew up together and they fall in love and they get married. So there's the blue one with his wife in the beautiful setting of, the village. Now, this has served as inspiration for India's love poetry and love literature. This literature is called the Raginis. So it sounds like the snakes, but it's the R-A Raginis, G-I-N-I-S. The Raginis are the love poems. And it's mostly inspired by this loving couple. They're supposed to be like the epitome of the perfect couple. Okay, so there are many paintings where they represent very tenderly embracing. I like 65. I like some of these night scenes. It's a little more romantic. The moon is shining up above. The vines are falling from the tree, all with pink blossoms. All the plants are blossoming. It's as if their love is creating this celestial joy and this joy that all of the plants, all of nature celebrate as well. Night scene, there Krishna is playing his flute, and there we have the women who are entranced by it. So this is all that love poetry. The artists are trying to represent that mood. It's again like the Greeks, that there are certain types of narrative tones appropriate for different types of literatures, different types of poetry. So this becomes the archetype of Indian love poetry. We have Krishna and his wife in the garden at the very bottom, and they're secluded because lovers need to be secluded. They need their time alone. And there we have the beautiful scene of a palace and like a sunset scene up above. Now, 68 is a little raunchy. So Indian artists, as we'll see later, do not hesitate to represent lovemaking. So 68, there they are, secluded. You see they're protected very nicely by the bushes and the trees as they're having sex. Okay, he's got a girlfriend, Radha, but that doesn't stop him playing the field. He is not very faithful to anybody because his one obligation is to himself and to joy and pleasure. Again, day-to-day village life in India is not pleasurable. He represents the fantasy, the dream of the life I would like to have. That is like you close your eyes and you dream of being rich. You dream of being powerful. You dream of having, a lot of sex, a lot of boyfriends, a lot of girlfriends, whatever the case may be. He's that dream icon. So on the right, we're at, number 69. On the right, you have his wife there with a friend while Krishna is playing with every other woman in the village. There he's hugging all of them. This again, he's a prankster, but it's really not nice. There he is. The women are bathing in the water. They've taken off their clothes. They put their clothes on the bank of the river. They're bathing. Krishna comes upon them, steals their clothes, climbs a tree with all their clothes, and refuses to give it back to them. That's not nice. So there they all are begging, please give us back our clothes. They're all praying to him, please, give us back our clothes. So he's not a nice person. So Krishna is the most popular of the avatars. Now, you won't believe the next avatar. They believe that Buddha was an avatar of Vishnu. That Vishnu assumed that form to come to earth. So why would he do that? The explanation is he came to earth as Buddha to pick out the weak ones, the ones who would follow any new religion that came their way. So he came to create an alternative path, to see who would follow an alternative path away from Hinduism, and then he would destroy them. That seems very strange. So it shows that Hindus think of Buddhists as an evil, heretical path. The last of the avatars. And this is, we discussed last class, the kalpas, 4.32 million years. And we are now living in the very, very last part of the kalpa. And in this Kali era, it's like apocalypse, it's devastation, it's immorality. as we said before, avarice, gluttony. Someone's place in society is driven by their money. You know, it's many of the vices that we see in society today. When we get to that last era in which we are now, this is how Vishnu will come. This is how he comes. And I like the print on the left. It's a French print when the French visited India in the 19th century. This is their interpretation. It's like the apocalyptic monster who will come down and destroy mankind. So on the left, you have a French version. On the right, you have a painting from southern India. It actually is like the apocalypse, the horsemen of the apocalypse. So, I should have said in 74, it's got a horse head because it's the horsemen of the apocalypse. So Vishnu with a horse head is the very last one. And when he comes, the earth will be destroyed. So he'll come at the very end of this era. And when he comes to earth, he will close the chapter. Again, it's his Maya. He closes the chapter. It's the end of the book. It's the end of the play. The curtain goes down and the earth is dissolved. Absolute blackness. Everything's at rest until Brahma comes again in order to create the universe. Okay, so that is our discussion of Vishnu and his various avatars. I hope you enjoyed it. And the next one will be a discussion of Shiva. So thanks for tuning in.